Hello friends and enemies, and welcome back to the lair for another retro review. My name is Alfred Jutsum, and this is NerdPod Generations on YouTube. We have plenty of reviews here, lots of fun stuff to check out, and our regular podcast, NerdPod Generations, can be found wherever great pods are found. So right now, though, we're going to talk about a retro review here on YouTube. What we're going to be reviewing today, because I've been in a little bit of a baseball kick of late, and what with springing and baseball season starting and the crack of the bat and everything that goes with that. So I watched the movie 42, which is about Jackie Robinson coming into baseball. So this is a movie that stars Chadwick Boseman, Harrison Ford, Nicole Beharie, Christopher Maloney, John C. McGinley, Alan Tudyk, Andre Holland. It's a banger of a cast, and we'll get to that in a second. But this is about what happens in 1945 when Jackie Robinson begins to transition into the actual baseball league as opposed to the African American only baseball league. So this is about the racial intolerance and life that finds Jackie Robinson once he goes into the Major League Baseball world. It's a very good movie. I would put this on at a pretty high rate. I think that this was something that we turned on just kind of for interest's sake. I wanted a baseball movie. I wanted something a little more modern. And we had been meaning to watch 42 for a while, so watching it was very interesting. It has a lot of really great performances. Harrison Ford is very good in the movie as Brandon Trickey, the owner of the Dodgers, and he is the one that is saying, we're going to bring Harrison Ford, we're going to bring Jackie Robinson into the major leagues. But he does pretty good with it. He doesn't do his general Harrison Ford. He does have his moments of like rough, angry Harrison Ford, but he is really putting into this performance a lot of care and effort, and you can really see the heart of the character. I don't know how accurate it is, but it felt wholesome and human. And I think it was a very human performance by Harrison Ford. So this movie takes place over the course of several years. The first few years that Jackie Robinson, or the first year that Jackie Robinson is in the Major League. It's about him transitioning from the Negro League into the Major League, and his first 2 seasons, because it's about, he has the first spring training, and a lot of the first season, it seems, in 1945 is in Montreal. Montreal is the AAA affiliate. And then he comes to the Dodgers, begins a whirlwind tour. Let me tell you that. This is a very dynamic and at times difficult movie. It is the kind of movie that will make you uncomfortable at times just because of the subject matter. So definitely be aware of that. There is a lot of racial justice and injustice in the movie, as you would expect. It's handled well, and it's not exploitative, I don't think. At least no more so than any film would be on this subject matter. And Chadwick Boseman does a really good job of playing Jackie Robinson and brings a lot of, again, humanity, and there's a sense of the complexity of who he is as an individual. So you have the competitiveness of the man coupled with the awful situation that he's in at times because of the way people treat him. And yet this is also something big for everybody beyond his own life, just like in general. This is a huge thing for every African American, and I know in a lot of cases they make it very clear to a lot of young white people in America. This is a huge deal, and I love the feel of the movie. They really do a good job of showing the sport aspect of it. It is a baseball movie, and there is a lot of baseball play to it. I watched Moneyball recently, and I would say that has less baseball feel to it than this does. This is something where you really get a sense of the pace and play of the game and kind of the way that Jackie Robinson plays it, and you get to see just how good he is. Because that's one of those things that is never forgotten but is always important to reiterate, is that not only was he the first African American man to play in the major leagues, but he was outrageously good. Ridiculously, outrageously good. So he earned everything that he got, and they do harp on that a lot in the movie as well. Just this idea of the few good people that he meets are oftentimes saying, well, if you have the opportunity, we want to see you succeed, but you had the opportunity because of the skills that you have. And so that's like the most respect he gets. It is a tricky movie at times. It definitely makes you feel frustrated and angry at America's history. I love Alan Tudyk. I love Alan Tudyk a lot. If you ever want to see Alan Tudyk play a horrible racist, this is the movie for you. Man, he plays a racist. And that was one of those scenes where he plays the manager of one of the opposing teams. And it's not even like a southern team. It's the Philadelphia Phillies. So they go down to Philadelphia and they encounter all kind of racial bias and prejudice. And in the middle of it is Alan Tudyk playing this manager of the Phillies who has a mouth on him. He says some appalling things and shouts them, in fact. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of, look how easy it is for racism to percolate and be passed from one generation to the other. Look at how white people kind of frame themselves as the victims when in fact there's a lot more going on that's a lot more complicated than what they would like to see, because they see the immediacy of their situation and not necessarily the complexity of everybody else's situation, especially those who have it worse than them. So this is like, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of like, oh, look at this kid, he could turn into white trash. So like, we have to make sure that doesn't happen. As a society, as a culture, we need to make sure that he sees his father's racism and rejects it, as opposed to falling in line with it. The movie doesn't have any pacing issues so much as I didn't find the ending particularly compelling. The movie just kind of ends. It is a big win in typical sports movie fashion, but it's not like a championship win. You know, they win the pennant and they go to the World Series, and then the movie cuts, and I get it because I don't think they won the World Series that year. I think the Yankees won, and it would be a few years before Jackie Robinson won a World Series, and you get all that information in the epilogue, and that's great. But I definitely felt that the way that it ended was a little anticlimactic. It was one of those things where there's a lot of him running around the bases after hitting a home run, and I had that moment of like, is this going to be the ending? Oh, is this going to be the ending? This is the ending. This is how it ends, is this very long, ongoing run around the bases and a shower scene. And that's kind of how the movie ends. It's not bad, but I would say, if I had anything to say negatively, I think that it had a somewhat anticlimactic ending. I think that it could have used a little more punching up, and we could have seen a little bit more. As is, the cast is great, and I love kind of the arcing ups and downs of the story, and how it's more than just the Jackie Robinson story. It's everything that's going on around the organization as a whole. So it's a very engaging and interesting movie. The baseball scenes are really fun, and watching Alan Tudyk play a racist is a novel thing in its own way. But at the same time, I think that it could have landed its final dismount better. Is it bad? No. I would still give it a solid 7.5, 8 out of 10. So this is still by far a positive grade. We're still looking at a B to an A-. I just think that at the end of the day, maybe there was some stuff that could have been cleaned up a little bit, and maybe the ending could have been a little more punchy, a little bit more dramatic. But special shout out to John C. McGinley, who plays the announcer of the Dodgers and is doing like one of those perfect old Hollywood style accent, like and he's great. That was a pleasant surprise, because you don't see him for like the first 30 minutes of the movie, and then he shows up as the color commentary announcer, and you're like, hey, look who's here. Same with Alan Tudyk. You're like, hey, look who's here. Then he opens his mouth. Wildly different scenarios when they open their mouths. So that's going to do it for today. That was our retro review of 42. I would say it's worth your time. It is a little depressing, and it will definitely make you feel frustrated about America's history, but at the end of the day, it is a fun, engaging, and entertaining sports movie. And it reminds me a lot of Remember the Titans. It has a lot of that same feel. So if you like Remember the Titans, I would say check out 42. Chadwick Boseman is the king, and he's great here. And Harrison Ford plays a really good old grumpy man, which you know he's got a great old grumpy man in him. So my name is Alfred Jutsum. That's going to be it for this week, friends and enemies. Until next time, until next retro review, have a great one, and we'll see you soon.